everybody. Welcome to another episode of What a Hell of a Way to Dad. It's your two favorite dads, Francis and Nate. Nate taking a little break from his Swiss adventures of trying to get a bank account and, be a person that is allowed to be in Switzerland. I myself still roasting in the podcast shack. We had a brief moment, Nate. We had a brief moment where it's that beautiful time where you have to wear long pants in the morning, but you can wear short pants in the afternoon, and that's gone. We had false fall, and now we've got last summer, and then we'll be into regular fall probably come October. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, it's kind of like that here now, actually. This morning, for example, when I took my daughter to childcare, I stopped and zipped up her hoodie and put her hat on because it's actually pretty chilly in the morning. It's not quite frosty, but it's chilly. But then I've been cooking a ton here, so much more than before because it's so expensive. And they're also it's not the same kind of culture of delivery and stuff like that like there is in London. But tonight I was like, I'm brain dead. I feel like, and I have to record. It's probably better to just order. And I went out and picked up some food down the corner at a Lebanese place, and I just wore jeans and a t-shirt, and I was fine, honestly.
Yeah, it's a beautiful time, that pocket in between when it's really cold and really hot. I've never really been a winter guy, but I think I'm looking forward to it this year, just because I'm kind of ensconced in my little pod shack here. I've got a space heater ready to go, and I'm ready to move from drinking cold coffee and tea into drinking hot coffee and tea. There's always a day in spring and fall where I hit the switch and it's just like, no, I drink iced coffees now in the morning, or I'm making my carafe of hot coffee or hot tea and taking it out to the office that way. So I'm finding myself ready to be done with sweating and being wet constantly in here. And hopefully we're planning some major updates to the house, because when you own a house, you have to deal with the house, and that means you have to pay money for the house, which really sucks. But I'm hoping to get some better ventilation in here because it is just stifling in the summer. So I need at least a vent to blast some of the hot air out of the exhaust or something.
It's funny. I think I still drink hot coffee pretty much year round, but not after the morning time. In summer, I'll probably have a hot coffee in the morning, but definitely iced coffee in the afternoon. And what's interesting for me here is that, the other day I was in a big enough grocery store that it's a supermarket that they were selling some home appliances, small things like kitchen stuff. Mm-hmm. And I realized they do drip filter coffee here. And that makes sense. Central European, Germanic influenced coffee culture, is less dominant with espresso. And while, France definitely does both, and you definitely have cafes everywhere. And if you order a coffee in a cafe, you're probably going to get an espresso, but they do drip filter here, which they don't in Britain. They just don't. You just don't see.
Drip filter is just a regular drip coffee maker, right?
What I mean by that is a Mr. Coffee, a coffee machine. Yeah. That's, okay. I saw them selling multiple different models of coffee maker. I never saw a coffee maker in Britain like that. I know they exist. They're just very uncommon. And
how do you make coffee in Britain then?
Well, most people, to be honest with you, most people don't make coffee at home, or if they do, it's instant coffee. But there are lots of coffee shops everywhere, and they all make coffee by taking espresso and then adding stuff to it. Mm. So making an Americano, or sort of making or whatever. But like a flat white is a kind of coffee drink that originated in, I think, either Australia or New Zealand. Definitely one of those two countries. They're really proud of it. And it's become the really standard drink in Britain. It's just basically it's like a latte with more milk to coffee ratio. It's really good. But anywhere you go where they sell coffee in Britain, you can get a flat white, and they're going to basically make you a shot of espresso or 2 shots of espresso, and froth
and
up
dump
milk.
It into a glass of milk for me.
No, you froth up milk. You just have more of it than you would with like Cynthia got me a latte at a coffee place here, and the standard latte proportions, I guess is the right word here, are just different. But yeah, I'd never seen, it's been a really long time. I remember one of the co-working spaces where we first started out with Trash Future, they had an old a restaurant coffee maker. I keep wanting to say Bunsen plate, but I know that's not what it is. But you know what I mean?
The one, the Denny's one, where
Denny's
you've got
one.
the,
Yeah. They had those, but they almost never.
That's a podcaster's coffee.
But they never used it. I never saw them using it. They had the machine in the common kitchen area, and I remember there were coffee filters periodically, but I never saw them actually have a pot of coffee going. Which, I think there's a novelty factor of having grown up with the only way coffee was made was drip filter, like a Mr. Coffee coffee machine, what we just described, moving to Europe and then having it be like, oh yeah, espresso based drinks are the norm here. And I like that. I have a nice espresso maker that's on its way over, it's been being shipped. But it was weird after COVID, like the first time I went back to America, I was staying with my parents and like they had a coffee maker upstairs and a coffee maker downstairs in like the guest area, like fully American. And I was like, man, I really missed this. Like I missed just like drinking coffee all day because like you kind of can, it's not like ultra concentrated. Now I won't have enough room in the kitchen of the place we're going to be moving into in November to have anything more than the bare minimum in terms of like the bare essentials, you know what I mean? But there's a part of me that's kind of like, maybe down the road, if my goal is to eventually get my own studio space here, like my own place, like what we had in London, but just for me. And maybe then I'll get a, like a weird Swiss plug Mr. Coffee and just go to town with that.
Yeah, I love the drip coffee. When I used to go into an office, they used to have these like little carafes that were set up that admins who got there in the morning would make the coffee, get them into these big carafes and these big like pump carafes. And we had some really good local coffee. We got a deal on it. But now, post COVID and now the office is like, anytime I go into my office, there's like 30% capacity going on in there. So they just got a Keurig machine, which I don't know. Keurig just doesn't hit the same for me. Like I really like having, like I have a big French press that I like to just dump a bunch of coffee grounds into, dump boiling water into, and let it sit for a half hour and, do the press. And then I have coffee that I can drink on all morning. So yeah, the individual coffees don't make sense to me, but I do want to ask, you know more about European coffees than I do. How exactly does an espresso machine work? Like it seems like you pack it into like a little cup and then hot water is forced through it. Like, is that the concept?
Basically with espresso, you want the coffee to be ground really, really fine. And you put it into something that's called a portafilter. And what it basically is it's the handle and it's typically got kind of like a threading on it to lock into the espresso maker. And then it's also got, like an inlet, basically like a cutaway where you put a metal filter into it, like a filter cup.
Sure. Okay.
And that's what you put a shot, or if it's a double shot holder, depending on the size, you put in and you typically, you tamp it down. You have like a metal tamp thing. You don't need one, but people use them. It stops you from like wasting coffee.
Yeah, it stops us from spilling out
all over, and then also like either over or under filling it. And so the boiler basically, you heat up water. There's like a distinction between machines that are double boiler versus single boiler. In a single boiler, it's either you have to like heat up the steam, and then you have to basically flood the boiler again to get rid of the steam. Double boilers literally have two, so one for the hot water and one for the steam. But the way it works basically is like, if you don't have the portafilter attached, it's water just comes out like, I don't know, like running out of a coffee maker, but it's got obviously a pump, running water out of the boiler when you turn it on. But the way the portafilter works is that, okay, like where that outlet is for the water has gaskets and stuff around it, and the portafilter kind of forms this seal. And so what winds up happening is the pump then forces this really hot water, like, 90 odd degrees Celsius water, so close to boiling, like, I guess like 180 to 200 degrees Fahrenheit, and it forces it through the coffee and then, the filter mesh, and the machine basically gets up to pressure when it's between the pump and the way that it feeds water in. So I can't remember off the top of my head. I want to say it's like 9 bars, like 9 atmospheres worth of pressure, but I might have the wrong number there. But basically there's kind of a default setting you want it to be at. That's kind of your stock assumption of like where you want how high pressure you want it to be when it goes through. And the idea is that it very quickly pushes hot water through finely ground coffee and kind of like leaches out the coffee essence, the oils and whatnot. And you get, So what you basically get is like a really kind of, relatively speaking, fast hit of water at high pressure coming through the coffee. And so that both gets you, all the flavor, all the coffee, the caffeine, everything. But also because there's not like an absorbent paper filter, you get like all of the oil in coffee, as opposed to a paper filter will actually catch that And there's difference in flavor and stuff. And so what you get is you typically want to do it like if the grind is correct and the filters are correct and everything's working like it's supposed to and the pressure is correct, it should be like, I think about 20 seconds, 15 to 20 seconds is how long it should take to fill like a shot glass of espresso. Like it's not the same as a liquor shot glass. It's a little bit more, I think, but I might be wrong. It might be the same, but basically like, let's call it about 1.5 ounces of very concentrated coffee.
Yeah. I think that's what keeps me from doing espresso is that it's this tiny little, I like to drink a big coffee, you know?
That's what an Americano is.
I'm stupidly American that way.
Well, that's the whole point,
what they call it Americano.
They call it Americano because fucking GIs in World War II were there and they didn't like drinking ultra concentrated coffee. And so people figured out, because these machines have the thing to run hot water as well, that you basically could just dilute the hot water or dilute the espresso to make it into a coffee that was close to, what Americans were used to drinking. And so that's literally an Americano. Yeah.
Something that we have, I don't know if you're familiar with the store Ollie's. They're all around, I know the Midwest. I don't know if they're anywhere else, but basically it's a place that buys things bulk that are, it's a wholesaler, right? They buy things in bulk and then they turn around and sell it to you at lower prices and stuff. So while we were there, we found a Mr. Coffee ice coffee maker, and it's kind of tall. It comes with here's the cup that it comes with. I got my iced tea in it right now. So it's really tall, and they're like, this is made for making iced coffee. So you want to put your coffee in here. But the thing is that it is exactly the same as doing any other kind of coffee. It is a drip coffee machine. It's just taller, and it empties itself into this cup, which you fill this with ice and you put it underneath, and then it when it filters through. But there's no difference. It's a regular coffee maker but tall.
So the idea is that like between you loading it with ice and the sort of like cooling effect of like a longer drop down, it's going to cool the coffee down enough that when it gets in there, it won't like immediately melt all the ice and make lukewarm coffee.
Well, I fill the whole thing all the way up, and by the time it's done, like if I get ice up to here at the top, this is about probably a 20 ounce thing. For you Starbucks drinker, I think this is the venti, same size. So you fill all the way up to the top with ice, and then you shove it under there and let the coffee drip over the ice. And by the time you're done, you've got about a good 1.5 inches of ice left at the top, but also 1.5 inches of space that you can add whatever. And I always add creamer to the iced coffee. But
you have an ice maker in your freezer?
I have a countertop ice maker, yes.
Because I actually I haven't had an ice maker in so long that I've just like, every time I go someplace that has one, like someone's home, or I go back to my parents' place, I'm just like, oh yeah, like there are some benefits to being American. Like,
right, I have ice on, I hit a button and I come back in an hour and I got a whole bunch of ice.
Yeah, I honestly have gotten used to not really, I mean, like ice is more common here than in Europe than it used to be, because I think the influence of like American style restaurant drinks, but also just it's hotter than fuck in the summer here now. It gets hotter here than it used to, but I haven't had an ice maker. I mean, like British people with money will buy big fridges, fridge freezers that have ice makers. Like that's a thing. But I didn't have one in my place in New York. I didn't have one in my BOQ in Korea. I think I may have had one in my place in Fayetteville, North Carolina, but I don't remember. I had an old fridge, and obviously I didn't have. And in London, like our first place had like a practically like a dorm freezer. Like it had like basically a mini fridge and a mini tiny freezer. Yeah. Well, no, it had like, so it had, instead of having a full size fridge, it had like IKEA fridges, like the mini sized ones. It had like one mini sized fridge and one mini sized freezer, and that was, you worked with that. And then we actually got a new freezer. We just bought a fridge freezer when our old one crapped out at our old place in London, and I told the landlord, like, look, I don't care. I'll buy it. Like, don't feel obligated to pay me back. Like, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to get the one that I want, because this old one, like, something's gone wrong with it. And now all it does is condense water and ruin all of the produce and stuff. But she insisted on paying me back. So, I mean, respect. But
I mean, it's her building.
I think because legally, if you wanted, there is not that the law matters in Britain, because like there's no one to enforce it. Like half the courts have been closed because of austerity and budget cuts. But technically speaking, you as a tenant can make you can take your landlord to court to have them pay you for all the improvements you made on the house. But like, I don't care. I just bought the fridge, and the biggest one that made the most sense for what we had. And I'm like, I'll be damned if I'm giving up freezer space for an ice maker. Mm-hmm. But yeah, man, I haven't had, I was just thinking about like Reverie, looking at your big ass glass of ice. And I'm like, yeah, I could do that. I just have to prep for like 2 days, stacking up my ice cube. I mean, Cynthia's obviously way more organized than I am. So she like keeps a rotation going, and she'll like fill up a big Ziploc bag in the freezer with ice cubes and stuff. But I was just, wow, reverie.
Yeah, we have because our kitchen is so small, our main fridge and freezer are downstairs in the basement, but we have like a small fridge, like a small fridge freezer combo. I think we got it from Costco for like $200. Like if you imagine mini fridge plus, it's a really nice, it comes up about chest high to me. And at this point we have, because we had ice trays in there, but we were always running through the ice, and then of course nobody fills them up and puts it back in. So it took a while for us to find an ice maker that we liked that also wasn't $300. So we found one for like $70, and it has its downsides. There's no it doesn't keep the ice cold on the inside, so you always have to make sure that you're unloading it and dumping it in, which isn't really that big of a deal. But now the freezer space in the upstairs fridge has one big ice tray in it, and that's what it is. It's the ice thing. And come November, I'm sure we'll retire it and we'll put it down in the basement or something, so they can come back out later. But yeah, we've been crushing through some ice.
So I have news for you actually about housing stuff, which is that we got approved on a place and we're just waiting for them to finalize the lease, and we're going to sign it. And it was complete happenstance. I went to a showing and I was the only person there because the apartment had already been rented, but the building superintendent hadn't been told, so he let me and the agent in. And then the agent had noticed that the listing was off the website, and he was like, yeah, I'm wondering if this one's actually gone. And the guy was like, the superintendent was like, well, actually there's a couple more in this building that are being renovated and they're all rented through the same company, so you should just call them. So he did, and they were like, no, we don't have any listings coming online, sorry. And then 30 minutes later called him back and said, actually, we just got a request to vacate early from some tenants in one of the other buildings in the complex, but it's a identical unit, same floor plan, same number of bedrooms, same everything, and no one knows about it yet. Isn't going to be online. They literally just filed it. But the way the law works here, if you want to get out of a lease early as a tenant, it's your responsibility to find a suitable tenant to replace you. And so they put the agent in touch with the tenants and they arranged a viewing. I was back in London handling the move, and Cynthia went and saw it, and she's like, it's perfect. Let's apply. And the tenant even said, look, they're a Swiss family and they're moving to Britain for work. So sort of like they've got a 2-year-old girl. So it's very fun.
You're hot swapping.
They're not going to London, but yeah. And the guy was like, yeah, if you want to rent this place, we'll absolutely recommend you and submit your application. So they did, and we got accepted. So obviously, knock on wood, nothing's certain till the contract is signed, but we're just waiting on them, to the office that does it, to finalize it. And either tomorrow or Monday, we're going to sign. And it was funny because you mentioned basement. We don't have a basement, sort of. We do, kind of, though, in the sense that this is pretty common in apartment buildings in Switzerland, that as part of your rent, you also get access to a basement storage unit for your unit. So it's a locking door. It's like a big cage room, basically, like in the army.
Yeah,
I've seen those. And you've got a number for your unit, and you can store stuff down there. So people typically put shelves in there, and keep their stuff, rotate out winter and summer clothes, that kind of a thing. And so it's not like air conditioned, climate controlled, but it's protected from the elements. And yeah, so we're actually going to have that. We have a balcony. We have a dishwasher, a full size dishwasher, not the Toy Town ass thing that we had in the UK. And it doesn't have a washer and dryer, but they did have them in the unit, and it has hookups in one of the bathrooms for both.
Ooh,
so we can,
main floor washer and dryer is a huge thing.
Yeah, man. I mean, we had a dryer in the UK because we bought one because we had this really awkward space upstairs that didn't really suit any storage, but it had power sockets. And so we just got a condenser dryer. It's a Turkish brand, Beko, and that thing was a fucking tank. I mean, it held up really well, honestly. And so we were just having lived the life of drying all your clothes on racks. I mean, we're back at that right now. It's getting more common here because there was a time when especially in the French speaking part, it wasn't common for people to have washing machines in their unit. You had a common laundry room in the building. Mm-hmm. And I am not making this up. It was very common that you would just have an assigned time slot, either per week or per month. Then it was your time to do laundry, and that was the only time you were allowed to use it. And if you maybe it would be like noon on a Wednesday. If you had a job, fuck you, your wife is supposed to do it. Thankfully, it's getting better and things are changing, and it's more common. Some of it is like noise complaints because this is a very rules country, especially in the German speaking part. Some of it was the buildings not being set up for the drainage and stuff, but it's just becoming a more common thing. And once you have a washer, honestly, the modern condenser dryers, they don't need ducts to hook up for outlets. You just anywhere you can plug something in, you just plug them in, and they're great. And so we're gonna get that. And yeah, we're building's got an elevator, a normal sized elevator, a normal shaped elevator, unlike the one we've currently got. It's in a really good area. It's really close for Cynthia for work. It's not super convenient for this place where I'm kind of using studio space, but if I ride a bike, it's like 8 minutes, so it's fine.
Yeah, it's nothing. And you're in a bike riding kind of country too,
and
right?
I like riding bikes. Yeah, it's more like there's not a direct transit link. Like there's a bus, but it would take me like 25 minutes. It feels like it's almost faster to walk. But yeah, riding a bike, super, super easy. Getting to childcare, super easy. The only catch is that we can't move in until the 1st of November. So we gotta slog it out in the current place where we're renting, and it's the most expensive thing I have ever bought in my life. 10 weeks in this place is the most money I have ever spent on any one thing in my life.
Wow.
In cash.
You got another 10 weeks to do.
I paid it all in advances. That's what I mean.
Oh, okay.
Like paying rent is one thing, but like it had to be paid up front. The most money I'd ever spent on anything before this was when I was in Alaska. I paid cash for a truck. I mean, I was an idiot, but it was used. It wasn't like a fancy anything. And I paid $14,500 for a truck in 2008. I had saved up like money for the first 9 months I was in the Army, because most was in like training schools when I couldn't spend any money anyway.
Sure.
This is more than that. Well more than that. Yeah. I have spent $23,000 on rent.
Ooh,
for 10 weeks. For 10 weeks. This apartment was one of 3 that were available for booking. That wasn't an Airbnb, because I really don't like using Airbnb. And
sure, I'm with you on Airbnbs. There's too many horror stories of somebody setting up a camera.
And everybody said use booking.com, and they're right. It's great for short-term lets, but we obviously don't want to move because we have a baby and we have stuff, and like we've got routines we have to have set up here for everything. When I looked on booking.com, there were 3 availabilities, and then I presume one of the owners must have fucking gotten notice that someone was about to try to book it for 10 or 8 weeks at the time, because it then disappeared. So there were 2 availabilities. A shed in Meyran, which is basically in France and far from fucking everything. It's obviously a converted garden shed. And this place. And they were more or less the same price. It's 7,500 francs a month. It completely wiped out my entire savings for the move, just on rent. So money doesn't exist anymore, basically.
Patreon.com/hell of a way to die.
Yeah. I mean,
$5 a month goes to making sure that Nate doesn't end up homeless.
I mean, look, here's the thing, right? Like, I've been saving money for 2 years now. I earn plenty. Obviously, like, I don't spend everything that I earn for my business as well. There are some kind of like tax fuckery implications that a lot of the money that I've saved up, like I've paid corporation tax on it, but I don't want to pay myself so much that it then causes more problems, headaches with tax authority stuff in the UK. But I'm fine. If I need to pull money out of a business account, I can. It doesn't matter. It's fine.
Sure.
It's more like past a certain point, like, okay, it's not like if you hit me with a bill for $1 million, obviously I can't afford that. If you hit me with a bill for $50,000, I can't really afford that. Like that nukes everything, every safety net I've got. But with this kind of a thing, at a certain point, you're just sort of like, fuck it. Like, what is money anyway? Like, I genuinely, like, it's so unbelievable. But Cynthia has a coworker who spent more, and he was living in a 1-bedroom because it took him 6 months to find an apartment. He went to over 100 viewings before he got accepted on one.
Is this kind of like the people who are renting this out as short term know you're going to be fucked, and they're like, well, you have no other options because everybody else is trying to do these long term rentals. I am offering short term, which is why it costs 3 times as much.
I think the majority of people doing Airbnbs actually live in the places and just are renting them out while they're away. So there's not this like massive oversupply of like Airbnb landlords. In that regard, it's rarer to find people who are willing to rent Airbnbs for long term, like more than a month. Mm-hmm. I also think that in general, there just aren't very many apartments available in this city. It's got like one of the lowest vacancy rates in the developing world.
Yeah.
It's just that tight to get a place.
Yeah. Housing stock always a problem.
And they are building lots of housing here. It's just that like it can't keep up with demand. And one of the problems too is that if this was a national problem, like Switzerland is definitely the kind of a country where like if a problem like this occurred at a national level, they would absolutely solve it. They wouldn't let it fester. But this isn't the case elsewhere in the country. It's just particularly bad in some cities, and Geneva is just the worst. But Geneva is not typical of the rest of the. Similarly with childcare, if the wait lists and stuff for state subsidized childcare were happening throughout the country, like they'd solve it. But it's just really a problem in Geneva. Geneva is by and large, it's a really densely populated city. It's got a lot of people coming and going.
Geneva, it seems strange to be like, well, it's only happening in Geneva, the biggest city in our country. Our capital.
It's not the biggest city in the Zurich is.
Oh, it's not?
Yeah, Zurich is bigger. Yeah.
Okay. So Zurich, if you were living in Zurich, that would be
I mean, it would be less expensive, and there would probably be more availability for a lot of things. Yeah. I mean, it's just Geneva also, there's so many international organizations here that they're always like rotating people in and out and stuff. And so you guys have a lot of competition. But what I'm saying basically is in the rest of Switzerland, there isn't a shortage of childcare. There's a shortage of children. The median age in this country is 42. The median birth, like the fertility rate is very low. And Geneva's kind of the exception in the sense that like lots of young people live here. Lots of people with kids live here. Lots of people are coming in, to work, so on and so forth. Also, like you got to realize too that like Switzerland's got a lot of devolved governance. Like it's kind of up to the canton to solve the problem in a lot of ways. Like the Confederation does give money. They're part of the budget too, but like it's tough, man.
You're much more states' rights or states, it's up to the canton or the state or whatever the, small border inside.
Yeah, the
you
canton.
Guys got to figure it out.
To be honest with you, yes. I mean, to the extent that we couldn't live outside of the canton of Geneva, even if we wanted to, without like a huge bureaucratic hurdle, because our entry visas into the country of Switzerland were through the canton of Geneva. So we can only live in the canton of Geneva.
Right.
We can't land, and we're not that far from another canton. Like the canton of Vaud, where Lausanne is like, maybe 30 minutes from here. It's within, there's actually an exclave of the canton of Geneva called the town called Saligny, and it's surrounded on all sides by either the canton of Vaud or Lake Geneva. So that technically, we could live there. I don't want to.
Don't want to go live by the lake?
No, I'd love to. I mean, I do live by the lake. I mean, it's everywhere's by the lake here. It's more like it's a long ass journey on the train to then get into Geneva, and then you have to get on the public transit in the city and go. So, like I said, it's an insane amount of money. When explaining this to friends and family, I just keep using the extremely haven't updated my brain since 2019 screenshot from Tiger King about I'm never going to recover financially from this. Like, I mean, yeah. I'll be fine eventually.
Moving is expensive anywhere, but having like just that whole like I need a temporary place to live and it's going to cost me, I mean, $20,000 for 10 weeks is I live in Missouri. Obviously, I live in a place no one wants to live. Therefore, these prices make no sense to me. But like that just seems overkill.
Yeah, I mean, it's because the way that it works is that this place is rented and it's rented at a day rate, and there's a little bit of a deduction for weeks, but it's not that much. Mm-hmm. And what the person is charging is not far off what it would cost. It's actually cheaper than what it would cost to get a hotel. And like, if we were staying for 10 weeks in a fucking airport motel, we'd all go insane. It's just not feasible. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The only options that were presented to me were, when I looked online, like I said, a shed, a really nice place near here that immediately disappeared, this place, and then luxury hotels that would have been like $60,000 a month, which obviously I'm not doing. No. So it sucks, but it's one of those things where, the minimum wage here is really high. It's like the equivalent, I want to say it's like the equivalent of $35 an hour, $40 an hour, something like that. So people earn a lot of money here, but housing's expensive, food is expensive, some cost of living things are actually quite modest compared to what you'd think. But where my daughter does childcare, it's a family that we met through connections here, and they just take care of it. It's like part-time childcare. I pick her up, and there's a regional commuter rail station, and they've got a vending machine. And sometimes when it was really hot, I'd be like, oh damn, let me just get a bottle of sparkling water. Just a bottle of water. Mm-hmm. Swiss heads know what's coming. It's a Selecta machine. Anyway, that bottle of water is 3 francs 70 centimes. That's over $4 for a bottle of water in a vending machine.
I mean, that doesn't sound outrageous to me. Like, I bought water at the airport before. Look,
but this isn't a train. This isn't a train station. It's not the airport.
I know, a train station, like kiosks now. Like getting out of a vending machine, yeah, that's pricey. But like a kiosk or food place inside of a large transit hub, that's not totally like that's more than I'm used to paying. But like $3.50 at the airport isn't that crazy.
Yeah, it's $4.36 at the current exchange rate.
And it's sparkling, so it's got a little little extra in there. I'm paying $3.50 for flat.
I think a Coke would be even more than that. I don't think.
I'm going to tell you what you guys need. You guys need Costco's, because Costco has a big vending machine filled with Costco waters, and they're 25 cents.
Yeah, sadly they don't have Costco here. They don't have Costco in France either.
Costco, you don't have drip filter coffee. Like, what are you doing here in Switzerland?
Well, they have Costco in Britain, so maybe someday it'll come here. The closest equivalent to Costco for Swiss people is drive your car across the border to France and go to like a huge Carrefour or Franprix or something like that, and like the groceries are just way cheaper in France. It's just a thing people do. You can take the bus or the train there if you wanted to, but I mean, you don't really want to carry all those groceries back with you. There isn't Amazon here either.
How do you order your office supplies? How do you get new toner and also tiny magnets in the same order?
To be honest with you?
Yeah.
Digitech and or Galaxus, which are the same business now. They're a chain of stores. They've got franchises or, like branches in pretty much every major city. You order online and then you either have it delivered to your house or you go pick it up in the store.
Oh yeah,
you go to the store.
That's what we have. Here's the problem here in America is that Amazon has decimated every store. So every time I'm like, oh, I need some kind of shipping supply, and I don't want to wait 3 days for it to show up, and I don't want to order 25 of these boxes. I only need one, and I go to the Office Max or Office Depot. I don't know what it is these days. They merged, and yeah, there's like nobody working there anymore. Like you can put in like a pickup order, but you walk in, there's like 2 people working, and they're just kind of aimlessly.
Yeah,
meandering.
I mean, basically, you go to in other places in Switzerland, Galaxus or Galaxu in French or Digitech are like big stores, like your Best Buy style kind of place. The one in Geneva is not. It's kind of a showroom for like phones, computers. It's really small, but you go in, you punch a button, you get a ticket, they call your ticket, you go up, they scan the, invitation to collect that you got by email. Normally it's like within 24 hours of an order if it's in stock. And then they bring it out to you and hand it to you and you're good to go. That's how I recently I needed some electrical tape to repair a cable, and I needed some pens and pencils. I needed a ruler. I needed some notebook paper. I needed some Post-it notes. Just bought it on Galaxu. Yeah, Galaxus. That's the thing. Inter Discount's another one. They sell a lot of computer supplies. So like I may need to buy some Swiss power cables because they have their own unique socket here that the only other places in the world that they use this socket are Liechtenstein and Rwanda. So I have no idea.
That sounds like us using the Imperial system too. All right, Nate, let's we got a lot of Ask Dad questions.
Really?
So let's spend maybe 15 minutes answering some questions. First one I wanted to pose because you'll probably have something for this. He wants to move to Alaska with his dog. So how do I plan to move to Alaska with a dog?
Well, I mean, look, the dog part's not hard.
Yeah,
if you're American,
put him in the car and drive him out there.
Assuming you're American, you just either drive up the Alcan or do the thing and, fly with the dog in the cage or whatever. If you really don't want to put the dog in the cage and you don't want to drive through Alaska, take the ferry. I don't know how transporting dogs on a ferry works, but look into it.
Yeah, I feel like a truck and a dog and a guy is a perfect combination to move to Alaska.
Just do it in like July or August and you'll be okay driving up the Alcan. Just understand that there are some long stretches where there's no services at all, no cell phone reception, and it's going to take you at least 4 or 5 days to drive. It's a long drive. I've done it. But the real question is, what are you looking for in Alaska? Because I've lived there and I would never live there again unless I had a profound financial incentive to do it, which I think the only things that would give me a profound financial incentive to live in Alaska would be the oil industry, and I don't see that happening anytime soon. So
no, not going to do. We're not going to be doing the Exxon Valdez podcast anytime soon.
Yeah, the Exxon Valdez, how it's good. We actually hated those stupid seabirds.
Those fucking penguins. You know what? We all came together and cleaned those penguins. So, really, we brought unity to, and also a lot of dead penguins.
It didn't actually happen. What I'd say is ask yourself what it is that you want, because I personally think that if you have the ability to, let's say, work remotely or something, you might be worth going up and spending some time there, not on vacation, although take advantage of the nature. It's beautiful. To get a glimpse of what life is actually like there, the reason I say this is Alaska is a unbelievably gorgeous place, but it's basically Arctic Mississippi, and it's a very, very mentally and physically unhealthy place. And so that doesn't mean everyone has a bad life there. Some people fall in love with it and they never leave. They love it so much. I fucking hated that place. But I guess the point I'm trying to make to be even-handed and, like helpful as opposed to just like venting my personal biases here. I think the thing about it is that like Alaska is a very, very expensive place to live. Some jobs pay very well, but a lot of them don't. Housing is incredibly expensive. It's a very harsh environment. And if you try to live cheap, you will be, and I'm trying to be polite here, surrounded by people who are further down the road of being crushed by their circumstances than you are when it comes to living in Alaska. You will deal with bad problems with crime, drugs, alcohol, general social dysfunction. It is a very, very dark place. I'll put it that way. Both in the winter when the sun basically doesn't come up, but also in terms of like the circumstances that people are in. It's a tough place to live. It's a really tough place to live.
Yeah, I would suggest just watching Northern Exposure instead, which is a very good TV show from the 90s.
I would also say that if you do go there and you're going to spend some time there, I feel like you should spend some time in Fairbanks, because Fairbanks is far more of like the authentic experience. And it has, well, the winter is horrendous, but it's real interior Alaska winter. But the summer is absolutely gorgeous. Whereas in Anchorage, you can have pretty dog shit summers sometimes, depending on the weather, because you are, in the North Pacific and you're right on the coast. One year that I lived there, all of July, it rained. It didn't stop raining the entire month. It just rained nonstop in the summer. Like, yeah, it's just understand that can't happen.
Right.
So,
it's not, there's a certain majesty to it, but also understand there's a certain reality to it as well.
Well, like if they could put wind farms and the transmission was actually feasible, you could basically power all of America with all of the wind on the Aleutian Islands, like the whole Aleutian chain, because it's one of the windiest places on Earth. But would you want to live there? And would you want to live right fucking next to it? I mean, relatively speaking, Anchorage isn't actually that close to it, but like it's a relatively similar climate. We'll put it that way.
So we have another question. How do I start a podcast? We get that question, I feel, a lot. And this is from somebody who I know has been playing around with the idea of starting their own podcast. So you're involved in about 20 different podcasts yourself. I've been doing this show for 8 years. So, and I guess like if I were to start a new podcast, what exactly, I feel like the things that I know best are not necessarily have this content or that content, but making sure that you stay on a schedule and have good quality. Like that's always been a big part. I feel like one reason I loved bringing, when you came on full and took over all the producing is just that we had really good quality sound production. So don't cheap out on that. Understand that like it's going to cost a lot of money to get these professionally edited, and maybe you can kind of blunder your way through it. But I certainly wouldn't want to.
I think you can. I mean, like there's some tools out there that are free or very cheap that you can use, and I mean it's really a matter of trying and learning. But what I would say about it is, I think Francis's point is extremely good, because one of the kind of daunting figures people will always throw out there is like, oh, you want to start a podcast? Well, there's 3 million podcasts on Apple Podcast Connect, and there's 100,000 or 500,000 podcasts added every month. That is true, and like 95% of them have one episode.
There are so many podcasts that I've seen out there. Like I'll come across somebody on Twitter and they've got a bio that mentions a podcast, and then you go and like, oh, you did 17 episodes back in 2002 or 2022.
Yeah, 2002 with the first iPod. Yeah, exactly. You were doing it on ISDN line. Yeah, I would say consistency. I think something is people get an idea and they want to launch immediately, and I think you actually benefit from fleshing out the idea and getting enough content in the tank that you can have, staggered releases and you're not constantly under the gun, because that's, especially when you're new at it and you're having to figure things out and stuff's taking you time, forcing yourself into like a tight schedule means you're going to miss a deadline. And then once you miss the deadline, you're going to keep missing the deadlines, and then you're never going to catch up and you're going to quit. Yeah. I would say doing it and sticking to it. I mean, I think Francis and I both being ex-military helps a lot in the sense that like, you give me a time and tell me to be there. And unless I can't, if something comes up, like I'll be there and we get it done. And like, even if the show wasn't like massively growing in audience or subscribership, it doesn't really matter. We kept doing it, and like that's held us.
We get a good 6,000 downloads a week. I mean, that's That sounds
yeah,
great.
yeah.
Like,
I mean, it's stunning. I mean, I'm always like, oh well, it's not breaking records. But then I remember that like the thing that got me started in podcasting, which I won't name, they did their own show after our series ended, and they were like a professional news publication site, and they were getting like 45 downloads per episode.
mm-hmm.
And it's no like disrespect to them for the content. It's just more like, here's a place that had an audience, and they started putting it out. And I don't know if it was that it wasn't marketed or whatever, but like, yeah, it was just based, at least based on their SoundCloud numbers. They might have been hosting it elsewhere, and so that wasn't, people were pulling it off an RSS feed. I don't know. But what I'm saying is that like, you got to do it because you want to, and it's an interesting thing you want to talk about, and you want to put the effort in to get better.
We do this every week. I like talking to you once a week.
Yeah.
I like having you on. I like having every week I get to bullshit about dad stuff with Nate. And, we rotate other stuff in. And currently we have 2 regular episodes that we can release because I'm going to be on vacation the next couple of weeks. And we've got some bonus stuff that's in the hopper and ready to go. And, that's doing this for this long. That's just, I know, like, okay, I'm going to be out of town. Need to front load some stuff, to your point about making sure that you have that you can cover down and that you can fill in where it's at. I think we're really good at that at this point, to just always have, like, I don't think we ever just like, it's this week, and if we don't do it this week, we've got nothing. And also I've got, a dozen people I can always reach out and be like, hey, let's talk about the last like 3 articles that you posted on military.com.
Sorry, Nate got hit by a huge wheel of cheese rolling down a mountain, so he can't podcast this week.
Are you going to is that in Switzerland where they chase the big cheese down the hill?
No, I think that's actually in Scotland or somewhere in the UK. Here, there are some weird alpine sports, but Geneva's kind of an odd one in the sense that it is Swiss, don't get me wrong, but like it's not the really deep lore, yodeling, horn, etc. stuff.
The Ricola commercial from the 90s.
That's really more German speaking part. But even like further into the country, you have to remember that Geneva was an independent city-state for a really long time, and then kind of got absorbed into Switzerland basically because they were like, well, Napoleon invaded and took over Switzerland, and then when they beat back Napoleon, they were like, yeah, fuck it, we don't want this to happen anymore, can we join? And now they're a part of the Confederation. So yeah, but do we have any other questions?
We got some other ones. Somebody let's see, any clever tools or tricks to share for a newly expecting father having twins in a couple of months? So I mean, you're most recent with the kid, and seeing one kid, but I feel that there are a couple of answers to that about trying to make sure that you have as many hands as can help. I don't know how much you leaned on the Trash Future Boys to come in and help out with your daughter.
Hussein and Zainab helped out so much, honestly.
I know Hussein likes
He's
kids,
about to become a dad too, but
oh, good for him.
But yeah, Hussein and Zainab were there from the beginning. They were the first ones to meet our daughter. Zainab came and visited, like, I want to say like day 2 when we were in the hospital. But obviously my mom came and helped after Cynthia was in the hospital when she had a stroke in March. And we have other friends. My buddy Michael helped me out. Our former intern Keaton, who was on this show, he and his mom and dad helped out. Like we did have a community of people there. It was really nice. I would say if you're expecting twins, clever tricks. Look, I hope you get 2 very chill twins. I really do. But the thing I want to say is you're going to be tired and you'll get through it because everyone does, but you don't want to make unnecessary mistakes that will make your life harder. Like I'm leaving out stuff that, puts you or your kid in danger because I feel like that's a thing that's kind of an obvious point to make. But like one of the things that I still struggle with this sometimes too is that sometimes you got to do something and you can do it right now, or you can literally take 15 seconds and grab a couple of the things that you need, and then you'll make it easier on yourself. So when you're changing a baby, for example, like don't open up the diaper until you've got the replacement diaper and the wipes. And if you're using like a baggie or something to throw the dirty diaper away, or like one of those, bins where you can turn the thing to clear like that, like whatever, get it ready. Like you're going to be in a hurry, and when you're tired, you just want to get it over with, but like, just get it ready, because otherwise like, oh, it's fine, change diaper. And then, oh no, it's a huge blowout poop diaper or something. And now it's like, I don't have the wipes open. I don't have the wipes to hand. And when you got newborns, like it's normally going to be okay. Although the thing with newborns is that like, you never know if they're going to have like a volcanic poop or pee eruption. And obviously if you got boys, like I have a girl, but like I took care of one of my friend's kids recently. He's like 18 months now, when he would have been about 7 or 8 months. And I immediately made that mistake of not having the cover diaper stuff ready to go, and he immediately got peed on. It was like he was just sizing me up, and he's like, he's not gonna look. He's not going to check.
He's not a boy dad.
He's not a boy dad, and then fucking piss
on.
cannon just immediately. So like, I think I told you this earlier also, talking about my experience. Like, I set little rules for myself, like certain things that I'll do. Like when I'm changing the baby, if she's got a messy nose, I never wipe a messy nose with a baby wipe if she's on the changing table or in the changing area, because one time I almost used a wipe that had already been used to wipe her face. Now, it wasn't like gross and disgusting, but it was one that had already been used. And I realized my mistake, but it was in the, it was in the dark. It was like, she had woken up in the middle of the night crying. She needed to be fed. She needed to be changed. And so like little rules like that, I'd say you should probably have multiple diaper bags. Like they don't have to be like specialty diaper bags, but just like it can be very useful to have like a quick go bag of diaper stuff as well as like a larger bag with things in it.
Yes. I would agree on that one. Like you're going to have your regular diaper bag, but you should always have like an emergency diaper, put a couple wipes in like a Ziploc bag.
Yeah. Wipes, change of clothes.
Change of clothes. A change of clothes. Just always have that like in your car or in your bag, just something that can fit. All of it can go into like a little Ziploc, because it's going to happen. Your kid is going to shit all over themselves while you're out and about, and you're going to go, oh God, and you're going to have that emergency thing there. And that's
yeah. Another thing I'd say too is something that Cynthia found they're really useful is there are these little like lanyard clips you can get, and they have like a loop end, and you can wrap them through like a pacifier or whatever you need to keep, and that way it'll dangle the thing instead of it falling, because as you will discover with newborns, if they like pacifiers, the only thing they like more than pacifiers is taking them out of their mouth and dropping them immediately on the floor. And another thing you should have in that bag, in your stash bag, is to have a replacement pacifier, because like it's just annoying to have to clean them if they manage to throw it on the floor. But those little clips,
just run it under some water, you'll be fine.
I mean, it really depends on like if your kid's like compromised, like that's really, you can't do that. It'll obviously better safe than sorry with stuff, but don't go. Okay, one other thing I'd say for kids.
All right, then we got to wrap it up.
There are a lot of things marketed to parents that are like, oh, it's extra safe and insightful and all this stuff. Here's this baby monitor that also like monitors their heart rate and their breaths per minute. No, you don't want that. You don't want that at all. It's an invitation to make yourself go insane.
Here's a baby monitor with an alarm. Oh, cool. My worst nightmare.
Yeah. Here's a baby monitor that'll send you a text and basically wake you up with a bright flash of light and like a fucking, DEFCON 1 alarm every time that your baby makes a noise. It's like, what babies do in the middle of the night? Make noise, fart, burp, laugh, everything you can think of. One of the biggest successes I think for us in terms of being able to return to normalcy after our daughter was born, get a dumb baby monitor, get a radio baby monitor, or a very simple video one if you want to have a video one. Like, don't get something with a million whiz bangs that's going to wake you up and scare you every time there's a thing.
Yeah, there are apps you can use. There's like mirroring apps. We've used that too. If you've got two devices, I know a lot of people have like at least a tablet and a phone. You can use that as a baby monitor as well.
I have a radio once, no video at all, and it's worked fine. Yeah. Not because I'm old school, it's because I don't want to go insane. Although it would be funny to see my daughter, when she sleepwalks, sits up in the middle of the night and is like seated up in her crib, but still asleep, just looking like a fucking haunted puppet.
Yeah, babies are fucking
They're
creepy.
Insane. Yeah,
nobody tells you how creepy babies can be. Nate, I appreciate you taking time out to talk dad stuff with me. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. Of course, if you want to support us, there's the Patreon, patreon.com/hellofaWayToDie. That is down in the show notes. $5 a month gets you access to all of our previous stuff, all of our bonus episodes. We do 3 bonus episodes a month. We do have lower tiers too that will get you bonus stuff, but $5 will get you everything that you need. I appreciate all the support that people have been giving us. We're getting a lot of good feedback on this kind of changeover we're doing. People like listening to their old dads talk old dad stuff, so we will continue to do it for you.
Yep, and we're excited to speak more. So until then, thank you for being a listener, and Francis, great speaking to you, and we'll talk to everyone else very soon.
Take care.